morning and welcome to Sunrise on Channels Television. I'm Joke Rogers.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome to the program. As you can see, she's almost blending with the background.
Yes, I thought we should brighten up your day.
Good thing, but I'm just a contrast this morning, even though I have a strip.
No, but you have some orange.
Yeah,
You look everywhere. Okay, you can't see the orange behind you, but
oh, I can't. Okay. All right. So, hope you had your cup of cocoa somewhere nearby, or if you prefer cocoa.
Or as I've brought in coffee, tea, or just water, really. Some people prefer water. You know, everybody's health conscious nowadays.
Exactly. So I saw a video yesterday. I was talking about the fact that one of the reasons that Japanese live longer is that they take, you know, some kind of, you know, special or different kind of they have a different kind of food regimen, and one of them is tea.
Yes.
And they don't take coffee, unlike some people.
Yeah, but you know,
I'm not saying coffee is bad, but I'm just saying, unlike some people.
I think what they do, and I think the Chinese too also do, it is to pay close attention to the herbs and the God-given plants that God has given us, to pay closer attention to the efficacy, what it can do, how you can use it, and not. Do you understand? Once they do that, it's better. But you know, other people, you just
it's you people.
Eat the staples and leave the rest.
It's you people. So anyway, by the way, one of the things that I think is interesting these days, Joken, is that to a large extent it's a bit of a shock, but thankfully interesting that the electoral timetable has been adjusted. I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah.
But it's been adjusted now from February to January. In fact, I was already thinking, wait a minute. March 6th is the posthumous birthday of Obafemi Awolowo, and usually there is a memorial lecture on that. I was wondering how they're going to do it. It's like they've been saved by the whiskers. The event has been saved by the whiskers, you know. But I also find out that from Yaga Africa that
who is fighting against this new election timetable? Anyway?
Well, no one is fighting.
No, well, who they are trying to wants amendments.
Oh, they want additional amendments? Oh, every human being needs amendments. Every human being needs amendments, you know. But, you know, how much is that going to achieve? Because almost every election cycle there is an amendment. And I think the president made a statement along that line. Look, we are not where we were, but now, after every election, we have reason to touch one thing or the other, which is making it all better at the end of the day. So, I guess one of the most important things, Joke, that we must do, from the example of 2 weeks back. By the way, you saw that report where INEC is saying we tried.
Yes, sir.
You know,
that's on the back.
That the population of people who come out for LG elections increased from about 11% maximum to about 15% now. So
that's, well, INEC is saying that's a part of the back. At least Professor Josh is happy that, you know, there's something to build on going ahead into the next round of elections. So let's see where that takes us.
But the thing remains, the fact remains that we still don't have enough understanding among our people how important local government elections are.
Perhaps the most important, really.
Yes, because your environmental officers, agricultural extension officers, health officers, and all those things, they usually should come from that lowest level. And if I would ask that every Nigerian go check the 4th schedule of the Constitution, that is where the functions of the local government administration or your local government council is. And if they are not doing those things, you should be asking them questions. Guys, why are you not doing this?
I guess that's where the fight for the autonomy of, you know, local governments is coming from, because over the years, it seems that all concentration are, you know, with the state and the federal government. They seem to be the most powerful elements of government. So it seems the local governments are just there. There.
Like offices of
they're just there.
Government.
So they're not the ones really doing anything. You understand?
But that is not true.
Yeah,
I've been in this country, Joke.
Yeah.
I remember under the Gowon government. I mean, that's the time I grew up to 1, 2, 3. Environmental officers will come to your house. Then there were no fridges. It was just water pots. If your water pot had tadpoles, what we would call tanwiji in those days, you're gone. that pot is gone. So you have to sanitize. You are compelled to sanitize. Yeah. In fact, it was in those days where drainages ran through homes. It ran through the corridors, what we call passage of the homes, the face me, I face you of those days. So if they were that active then, and in the Second Republic, if anything, they were actually upgraded by the Obasanjo government. And in the Third Republic, I saw them extremely active, Joke. Yeah. They were commercially viable. The people who ran the local governments then were intelligent, highly educated people. Yeah. I won't forget the likes of, there's this man who was at Ojo local government at the time. Then there's Prince Adeniji Adele. There was the guy at Mushin. I've forgotten these guys' names. They competed healthily with each other to make sure that their local government councils, the bars were raised. It was even interesting in that Third Republic. It was an SDP, largely SDP local government authorities, working with an NRC governor at the time. And if it worked then, what's stopping us from working it now? Those who are saying, "Oh, constitution, we really shouldn't have," as your own. Me, I've seen them work.
Okay, let's get into our minute. Just to say it out there, Adamawa State Governor now has formally defected to the APC.
Should we say one down more to go? I don't know. Okay, so you were talking about
Benny, so we've talked about it. We are focusing today on the Electoral Act controversy. That will feature majorly on our discussions today on Sunrise.
If you're wondering why it's a controversy, you'll find out later on. And then the expansion of conflict zones. What does that mean? Where is it coming from? Find out also on later on today.
Yes, and of course, everybody just picks up their phone or their gadgets and says or types whatever they like on social media
and get into trouble
these days and get into trouble. Maybe at that time they don't, but eventually trouble comes. So we're talking about social media etiquette. That's also coming up.
How you should stay safe online.
And then our Artist of the Week will come up as well.
And our Artist of the Week today, let's just say, no, I won't say it yet. I don't want to. This is one of the, things that we've talked about. We've talked about farmer-herder clashes. It's not that, but it's something like that.
Why are you so restless? Why are you? Keep your hands down. We'll see you in a
right back.
Of course, we told you earlier that we'll be focusing a lot on the Electoral Act controversy. which has now, done a lot of things. We now know that the timetable of the elections have been shifted, and the presidential and National Assembly elections for 2027 will now take place on January 16. The last time we had it was February, and I remember several years ago I had a significant milestone in the month of February, which reminded me of the elections because I couldn't participate in the, coverage of the elections at that time. I won't say what it is, but, but I'm sure you can guess already.
I'll try not to. I'll focus on the Electoral Act.
Right. So the legal landscape has been fundamentally reshaped by the signing of the Electoral Act 2026 on February 18. While the act was marketed as the final fix for the transparency issues that dogged the 2023 cycle, it has instead ignited a fierce national debate over the future of Nigeria's democracy. And I know that a lot of civil society organizations are battling it. They're trying to get it back to where it was before. The controversy enters on a critical paradox. While the new law mandates the electronic transmission of results to the INEC result viewing portal, or IREV as it's popularly known, is simultaneously preserves a manual fallback clause. Now, critics argue that this creates a legal grey area where manual forms, which is said to be susceptible to alteration, can still override digital records in the event of a technical failure. Now, we have several, commentators or analysts to join us this morning to talk about this and unravel it. And let us just make meaning of what all this is. We have Godi Wazurike, legal back practitioner, who joins us in the studio. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, how are you?
Of course, we have several other people joining us as well. We'll get to them when we do.
That's Okoye Obonobla, legal practitioner and former special assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on prosecution. Thanks for joining us this morning.
And we'll also be having Sunusi Musa, senior advocate of Nigeria, who will join us later for this discussion. Right, so we called it the Electoral Act controversy. What do you call it?
Well, I think it's the Electoral Act confusion. Confusion because for one reason or the other, they take one step forward, they take two steps backwards. We had the 2023 election based on an existing Electoral Act. And from the judgment of the courts during the presidential election fight, we saw some gray areas. So we're supposed to take many steps forward
what were
to
those
correct.
Gray areas?
First and foremost, what was the status of the IREF? INEC kept on emphasizing, your votes will count, people will see everything is there for you, no hiding. Of course, they told us it was a ditch.
Increase the volume.
And the contestants went to court saying, look, based on the law, including IREF, the justices said no. There is no legal status for IREF. It's just a viewing portal. You look at it, you go away. You can't even tender anything from there. So we said, fine. We're going to make amendments to make sure that transmission is instant and is legal and is binding on all. So there will be no dispute whatsoever. Everybody moved, and we're told the one panel or the other recommended having transmission electronically instant. As they are voting, people are seeing the results. By the time the House of Reps met, yes, they were on the right track. Then the Senate came in and removed most of those things and made it optional. Then the crisis of confidence started. That's the confusion I'm talking of. The crisis of confidence. People were very busy complaining that this is not what we asked for. Then finally, out of the magnanimity of the powers that be, they said, well, we'll go for electronic transmission bets. If there is no network, as you know in many areas, the electoral officer can just write something. And that one they have written is the one that is binding. text present, the primary document.
Yeah. What exists, maybe just for clarity, what existed before this Electoral Act amendment?
Before?
Was that the result for ECATA is right there, and it's the one that could be tendered for anything at the time. But IREV was supposed to be used to take a picture of it and upload it, a picture of what was written and upload it on IREV. The law now says, same process, written, whatever is written, you take a snapshot of it and you upload. You must upload. The same thing. The question a number of people are asking is, hey, is that really electronic transmission of results? I think let's ask Mr. Obunobla. You are also part of the system, and you know sometimes how these things play out. What is your take? I'll use Joke's question as well. We call it Electoral Act controversy. What do you call it? Well, Chief Uwazirike calls it confusion.
Confusion.
What do you call it?
Oh dear.
Can you hear us, Mr. Bonobla? Please confirm that you can hear us. Okay. Well, we'll work on that one and get back. So,
What is missing? Let me answer that question.
Yes.
Is instantly.
Okay.
In other words, first and foremost, the difference is that in the past, the man writing it, nobody questions him. But now, we're saying transmit electronically instantly, okay, not later.
We'll come back to you immediately on that one. Mr. Sunusi Musa is also with us. He joins us virtually. He's the senior advocate of Nigeria. Thanks for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah, as I said, we have called it Electoral Act controversy. What do you call it?
Well, it is normal. You know, in politics, there is nothing new about this. Every time Electoral Act is amended, it's natural it will generate controversy from 2002 up to this moment. If you remember, in 2002, the Electoral Act, after the election, the court had to pronounce that it was unconstitutional, but because election had been conducted under it, so it cannot declare it a nullity. So there is no time that you will have an Electoral Act that is passed and all politicians that are contesting election under it will be satisfied with what is stated there. So for me, it is a continuation of the ritual that normally happens every year. So either calling it controversial or whatever, it is the expression of the opinion of the people and what is happening, and that is the beauty of democracy.
It has a problem where some people are raising issues about those things. Yeah. For instance, the opposition parties, opposition leaders actually, have rejected the act. They say it's anti-democratic. So perhaps the question that I would want to ask you is, as a legal practitioner and a learned silk at that, a senior advocate of Nigeria, what are the issues that are likely to come? Yes, there are those who would say the issue raised by Chief Uwazirike here, that, the courts said IRF was not a legal inclusion. It is now a legal inclusion. Yet, opposition party leaders are raising issues about it. What issues do you think they are raising? What are is there any validity in them?
Well, you see, like I said, on the issue, yes, let me start from saying that, as you have said, there are a lot of concerns that have been said, those that are genuine and those that are not genuine, that are politically motivated. The Muslim Nigerians read the issue of having the difficulty of conducting the election during the Ramadan, which has been addressed by the Electoral Commission. On the issue of transmission of result, you know, under the Electoral Act 2022, there was no provision which mandates that once after a result is announced, the electoral officer is expected to now snap the result and send it to the IRF portal. It was the regulation of INEC which was made pursuant to the provision of the Electoral Act. And I think, with all respect, this is one of the problems we have, as far as my understanding of the law is concerned. But you know what the court says in the law. But we have the right to, in places, to criticize what the court says. And I think, let me exercise that right. Saying that what IRF or result that is transmitted is unconstitutional. With all respect, I think that is that cannot be the intendment of the Constitution, because one, it is the Constitution that empowers a National Assembly to make Electoral Act. And the Electoral Act also gave INEC the power to provide rules and regulations concerning the election, and to some extent the Constitution. So, and we have what we call subsidiary legislation. You have the Constitution, and then now you have a legislation which is an act of National Assembly. Then you have regulations that are made pursuant to that act of National Assembly, which the electorals normally, there are rules and regulations issued by INEC, which are called electoral guidelines. And it was there that the issue of transmission of result was included. But now the court in their wisdom said that you cannot rely on that because it is not provided in the Electoral Act. Fine. Now we have a situation whereby, I mean, almost verbatim what is stated in the electoral guidelines, it is lifted and put in the Electoral Act, which now made it mandatory for the electoral officer, after conducting the election, after entering the results from EC80 form, and after signing it, and after agents have signed it, to now snap the picture and send it to the IRF portal. Now, the act went further to say that, but the one that is fit, it is the one that will be used for the purpose of collation of results. So, to the extent of my understanding of the law, I can't see anything that is there that you say that it is done out of the ordinary. And what do I mean? You don't expect that when we go to the Ward Collation Center, where you are going to use from EC8B, now that the Ward Collation Officer will now have to start going to IRF for him to get the result there. No, that is not the intention. Because normally, after filling from EC8A, the electoral officer will take the original. The next one will be given to the police. Okay. Then the rest, as they are, will be given to all the agents of the party. It seems,
as the president said, my apologies, it seems, as the president said, that the whole process is still largely manual. It's just that, you know, the electoral, the electronic aspects have to come in. But let me quickly take this to Abuja. Mr. Obunobla, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Thank you very much. So the first question I was asking you, which unfortunately you couldn't hear, was, well, Chief Wazirike calls it Electoral Act confusion. We call it Electoral Act controversy. I wonder what you call it.
Well, I will call it a very innovative, progressive piece of legislation, and that tries to balance all the competing interests. Law is on jurisdiction, like there's a sociological school, there's a realist school of jurisprudence. There are several schools of jurisprudence or law, philosophy of law. It says, look, law, you know, is a balancer of competing interests, particularly in a diverse society like Nigeria. So the law will try to balance all the competing interests. Some people were advocating for transmission of election results. And some people were saying that because of the peculiar infrastructural deficit we have in Nigeria, there are many parts of the country where you cannot have a network, an internet network. So because of that, there should be a balance. Let us have manual collation of results or transmission of results when internet fails. So I think that is a balance between these two extreme positions. And it is good for the country. We shouldn't do something that will compromise the election. We saw that even in advanced democracies like the United States of America, 250 years of the practice of democracy, we still have contentious elections. We heard President Trump, saying that Biden didn't win the election. So you also heard him, he was threatening some few weeks ago that if the midterm congressional elections is hence in favor of the Democratic Party, he was going to nationalize the conduct of congressional elections. He would take it from the states.
Just one second, if you can
hear me.
County
councils.
My apologies, if you can hear me, Mr. Bonobla. Just one second. The issue you raised about network, a good number of people have sort of debunked that. So on the one hand, you're saying, and a number of people have said the same thing, that we should be cautious about electronic transmission because of network. But there is hardly any area in Nigeria where there is no POS. In fact, there are those who reference the fact that in this same country, in those so-called ungoverned spaces, non-state actors make calls to demand ransom, and they're able to get through. Are they using satellites? So how would you respond to that one?
I would disagree with you. Let me give you an instance. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Abuja, and I needed to send money to somebody in Cross River State. And there is this platform that is very efficient, Money Point or HeroPay. They are very efficient. Their IT system is very good. But I sent money to somebody, and the person did not collect the money till this moment. The person has not collected the money I sent to him on the 16th of February, 2026. So there's nothing that is so perfect or excellent or seamless. Okay? Even artificial intelligence sometimes fails. So the fact that there's connectivity does not mean that it cannot fail. It can fail any second. And if it fails, then we should resort to manual so that the election is not estimated.
Okay.
We have to be very careful. Also, let me give you another instance again. There was a time I took Access Bank to court. I got an account, and then I paid money, and the money went to a different account. I wrote to the bank that this is what has happened. They traced the money to a different account. But I had to go to the Competition and Consumer Protection Tribunal to get back my money. And it took me almost 1 year.
Let's just hope, Mr. Bonobla, that you were able to get your money back. But that's one argument, one way to look at it. Just 1 second, we'll come back to you shortly. Another way to look at it, Chief Wazirike, is this. There are those who say, and it was on this program, I think 2 weeks ago, that we spoke with some tech experts. And I asked them, these are people who are also in not just, using and all of those things. They are also what you call ethical hackers. And one of the fears that have been expressed about the process is that of hacking.
Yeah.
You would remember that
Yeah.
INEC said that the reason they had issues in 2023 was because of millions of attempts to hack the system. So that's one. Another I leg to it is, since we are talking about transmission and all those, there was a scenario that played out recently where someone downloaded the Form EC8A, a particular Form EC8A, altered it, and uploaded it again on the same platform. And of course, I think it was Grok on X that was used to find, what all of that is. So perhaps that's one of the reasons that people are saying the balance is fair.
Well, let me just say this in all honesty. Any part of the world practicing modern democracy goes for electronic transmission instantly. The same day India had the election, the same day they had their voting, the same day they knew the results. Because within every 1 hour, you notice something. United States will saw their own. More countries are going to do that. Why can't Nigeria go forward instead of stepping backwards?
You don't think that manual transmission of results is not the issue here, but that of electronic voting? Because there's one that I read about recently in Brazil, that even though they do, electronic transmission and all of that, you have to wait until after the polls, not immediately you vote. So polls have to be concluded, and polls usually conclude around 2, 3 p.m. So it was only after then that they will now still have to do what they need to do, take pictures and all those things. In fact,
when we read the news and we talk about elections in Africa, in other parts of the world, we usually hear the results would not be known until 2 or 3 days, until, X number of days and all that. So how are we any different?
Let me tell you something. India is one of the most complex countries in the world. So if India, which is today the most populous country in the world, can get their results within hours, why can't Nigeria? India is 1.5 billion. Nigeria is only up to 300 million. All I'm saying is that the beavers, which they told us was going to capture everything and look for signal. You step over there, signal comes. You step over there, signal comes. But not in Nigeria, because they say the electoral officer will decide when he has network, then he writes it down. We saw it in practice in Abuja, where how many voted? 230. How many online? 230. Result, one party got 1,200 something, and it was uploaded. It was only recently that INEC said, no, we have cancelled it. But it was there. We knew that for many years, you see results showing A1, B1. This is the winner. But the person sworn in is different. So we're talking of going forward. We're not talking of going backwards. Don't give them discretion whether there will be a network or not. I send money to my place. If you go to Mbano, they'll receive it immediately. I send money to Munguno, they'll receive it. But when it comes to election, the governorship will go. House of Assembly will go. But that of the presidential election will have a glitch. This is man-made. Do you know that up to today, the certified true copy of the presidential election results have not been released? The contestants said, give us. They said, we'll give you. They never gave them. Court said, bring it. They never brought. Till today. So it is that human element that is causing the problem. So when Senate finally said, well, where it is not working, we use this and added something. Primary document is that handwritten one. What is the IREV? What is the electronically transmitted one? Secondary.
No, the IREV is the electronic transmission is the primary, and well, you are a lawyer. Mr. Musa is also a lawyer. What's your take on that one? Because the issue, that what we understand from the Electoral Act, and we stand to be corrected, is that the manual, write-up and everything will now be the fallback. But educate us, Mr. Sanusi.
Okay. Let me start by saying that my learned friend there, that we should not be on the national TV like this and mislead the public. Indian elections are done electronically, that is one. And despite the fact that it is done electronically, it is done in phases. So Indian election took them almost 6 months to complete. But on the last date of the election, which I think was June 4, on that day, election results must be counted simultaneously and announced. But it was not a manual voting. So if we are talking of that, we will talk of a situation whereby we have an electronic voting system like in India. Then we now talk of being able to collect and announce results on the same day. But where we are talking of election manual, that is, let me say, from accreditation is done manually, casting vote is done manually, counting is done manually, then you now write the result on the result sheet manually. Then the only thing that we are raising issue on is the fact that we then when what is recorded manually is transmitted to IRF, and we have the one that is physical. Now you want us to give preference to what is snapped and posted there, then the physical one that is in our process is standing logic when it says. There is no way that the one that is posted is a secondary evidence when you have the original before you. So if we are talking about, we should now try and think, see that by the time we come to 2031 election, the entire system is electronic. So when we have electronic voting system where each voter will go and vote, the same machine we have, we can now configure it, or we can produce other machine that will be able to, anybody who goes to vote can vote electronically. Then that way you can be able to generate the result instantly and after the election and announce it. But where you've done everything manual, and now you are saying, no, in collation of result, we will not agree to what is physical but what is in the portal there. Then you are now raising question of, is there anything that the opposition wants to manipulate in the portal, that they are insisting that what is sent to the portal is what will be used, not the physical one that they have their agent side? You should be asking that question. So as far as I'm concerned, the issue of saying that we must use what is an IRF is neither here nor there. You know, the last election, PDP candidate built his election petition and they claimed that he won the election based on what is an IRF in his own thinking. And you know, in Kaduna State, I remember the governorship election, which I was part of. The PDP candidate also built his election on the result that is on IRF, while we have the physical one that is before the court. So the opposition should learn to go out and campaign and get vote and have their people everywhere to get their result. But trying to say that they want to manipulate a particular electronic transmission of result for them to get whatever they want, I don't think that is what we need. All of us, we want to have a free, fair, and transparent election. But as at now, we are going to use manual voting, manual counting, manual recording of results. So that is what it should be. Since that is what we have used at the point of voting, why are we changing it? Right. If we want to have an electronic voting, we should have an electronic voting, then so that we can say the entire process is electronic, so there is no need for any paperwork. But where you have a 90% of the system done manually, and it's only 10% that is sent, and you said that we should rely on that 10% for the election, I don't think that is a fair way of doing things. Yes.
Right. If we go to, let's go to Mr. Obla in Abuja to expand this more. Just a couple of minutes ago, I know that Mr. Sunisi just spoke extensively about IREV and, electronic voting, and Mr. Wazirike just also talked about, gave the analogy of India and being a complex political system and how they've been able to navigate this process. But we do understand...
Please, hold on.
Right.
My argument is electronic transmission.
Transmission.
Not electronic voting. My other friend was talking of voting.
Right.
Electronic voting. No. Nigeria, we are not yet practicing electronic voting, and there is even no road now.
Right. For the transmission.
Electronic transmission is different from electronic voting.
So we understand, these other countries that we've spoken about, their system really does not really deal with the internet per se, but that they do their voting they back it up somewhat, in a pool of resources where they keep, and before they do all their counting, and then in a couple of days or hours, as you put it, the results come out. How Mr. Obla, if I can, put that question to you, how do we transit to that, in Nigeria? Is it not too early? We just started this really in 2023, and I think it takes a process to get there. And I think the opposition parties, civil society organizations that are calling for things to be stepped down and what have you, in my opinion, I think it's a bit too early. Shouldn't we ride out the process and see how much work INEC and the government can put into this to ensure that it works, not in 3-4 years, but maybe in about a decade or 15 years from now? Let's see, how the election cycles, can work with this new system.
Yes, I don't think it's been India at a point was at the same level with Nigeria, even China, Indonesia, Turkey, but these countries have moved ahead of us. India gained independence in 1947. Nigeria gained independence in 1960. But our process was truncated by military incursion into politics, whereas India, was a democratic country. So India has experience more than Nigeria, even in technology, or everything that is happening in America, the Silicon Valley, is from India. So India has moved ahead of us in so many ways. We are just 25 years old. Democracy came in 1999, just a short period. So let us internalize democracy first. We shouldn't be in a hurry because we want to be like India, we want to be like in the U.S. I had mentioned the U.S. You will expect that U.S., a country that has practiced democracy for 250 years, will have a perfect election, a non-controversial election. But I just mentioned, previously, how Trump was threatening that he would not accept the result of the midterm congressional election because he's suspicious that the states and the counties that are conductors of these elections are not, inclined to the Democratic Party where he belongs. So let us use this law that the National Assembly has tried to balance two competing interests. Those who want manual, collation of election results, and those who want electronic transmission of election results. So let us test it in the forthcoming elections. And if it fails, then the National Assembly or the court, if the matter goes to the tribunal or the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal, whatever, the court will point out these mistakes, these imperfections, and then the National Assembly will work on it to make it a perfect law. There is no country where you have a perfect law. Okay? So the law is always made, then it will go to the judiciary to test it.
Mr.
So let's test this law.
The challenge here, if you can hear me, the challenge here is, yes, there is no perfection in the world today as is, but I think the challenge people are having is where we pretty much give ourselves the excuse that since there is no perfection in the world, anything can happen, and I don't think that is what is acceptable here. Now, Chief Ozurike, there are a number of other issues that have been raised on this matter. One of the other issues is that of how the parties now conduct their primaries.
Yeah.
The way you smile is suspect. Parties are now mandated to conduct direct primaries or consensus as the only methods for candidate selection.
This may create a shift, right, in their internal...
let them shift whatever they... What's your take?
I said the take 1 step forward and 2 steps. I think I better amend it. They take 3 steps. What do you mean by either direct primaries or consensus? In other words, the godfathers have won. If the chairman and the secretary sign that by our agreement, this is the candidate. Who are you?
But that's the consensus.
That's godfatherism. If they take an unpopular person and sign, that, as always the case, they have helicopter politicians. They're not the choice of people, they're the choice of the leaders.
No, but just to be clear, there are two options. There is either consensus or direct.
Direct, yes.
Now, the challenge of indirect primaries is known. Say, like, maybe 2,000 people come to represent party members of like 100,000. And each one of them will get XX whatever and vote in a particular direction. Perhaps that's one of the issues being addressed here.
Or in a different direction.
Okay, yes.
In other words, A and B have a chance to compete for the 2,000 people.
Yes. Like, if you remember the last, the primaries of the APC that brought in the current president, they all went out. All the presidential primaries, candidates, contestants went out. But one after the other, a few of them began to defer
and step down.
But
For each other. Yes.
I think you're jumping.
Okay.
Before then, the then chairman of APC, the former governor of Nasarawa, announced that it is the decision of the leadership that Alhaji XYZ is the candidate. And people protested. People protested vehemently. Of course, Nasarawa had to issue a statement later. No, we did not authorize it. Please go ahead with your primaries. Indirect.
Exactly.
Those who had no chance at all stepped down. Those who believed they still had a chance continued. And nobody come up to say, Ashwaji did not win that primary. He won. Yes, he had more money than others, no problem, but he won. The people had a chance to do open secret voting. What is the difference between it and consensus? That day, the chairman of the party will meet with the secretary, and they all sign by the consensus agreement, this is the man. And that Alhaji from Yobe will be president today. Give the people a chance, either direct or indirect, but never in a boardroom you decide who.
Let me ask, Mr. Sunusi, what your take on that is. Because I'm not sure how frequently I've heard consensus candidature in our elections since 1999. But we have had indirect primaries in Lagos, and everyone who is a member of the party had a say in who the candidate was or would be at any given point in time. The challenge of indirect primaries is known, but then he's also raised a very valid point in the fact that consensus means, as some people will say in Lagos, babasokwe, meaning the godfathers have spoken and that is it. So what's your take?
In the first place, I don't agree that my own understanding of the extent of the legislative powers of the National Assembly, that power does not extend to them making provision on how political parties should produce their own candidate. I think that is outside the legislative powers of the National Assembly. Their legislative powers is to legislate on how the general election is going to be done. The election into party offices or selection of candidate by a political party should be in the constitution of political party. And if you go back to section 222 of the Constitution, what the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria requires is that each political party shall have a constitution in accordance with the guidelines of INEC. So my own understanding of that provision is that it is INEC that would issue the guidelines to say that this is what should be contained in your constitution. And if it said that you must provide a particular manner of conducting primary elections, so be it. And I think we should stop pretending that we are trying to create either a principle of general popular candidate by members of the party. To the best of my understanding, the courts have consistently said that whoever is fielded by the party, the court cannot question that. So even if you do primary election and somebody got 10,000 votes, and if the party field another candidate, the decision are that a court cannot interfere in political decision. That's what the courts have been saying. So as of today, I want to give you an example of the last election whereby even the Electoral Act that mandates that each party must submit a membership register to INEC 60 days before the primaries. And a particular governorship candidate that emerged, and his name was not in that register, but Supreme Court said no, they cannot interfere. Once the party filled him, either as a member of that party at that time or not, he is still a candidate. But whereas membership of a political party is a constitutional requirement for anybody to contest election. So I think those are areas that we should just, as far as I'm concerned, leave it as it is. But then let me also say this. I don't hold the opinion that direct primary election is better than indirect primary. As evil as it may appear, as far as I'm concerned, and the little I know about election process, conducting indirect primary election is far, far much better, more transparent than the direct primary election. And why am I saying this? You have a situation whereby if the parties don't even have a verified register of its members, now, how are you going to conduct the primary election in direct primary? Are you saying that INEC is going to provide the register of members that is submitted to each polling unit so that you know the number of registered voters? Because you cannot go to an election to say that you have 1,000 members in a particular ward, and now you end up having a result. Somebody has scored 2,000 votes and the other one scored 1,000. That is invalid. So you must have a verifiable party register that will use to know that before going into the election, you know the total number of votes, the expected number of votes to be cast at the election. But that is not what we have today. But in a delegate election, you know the number of the delegates. So if there is overvoting, it can easily be detected. If you bring somebody who is not a delegate to vote at the election, it can easily be detected by the candidate. So in my own understanding, that provision of the Electoral Act mandating that either consensus or direct primary election is unconstitutional, is outside the powers of the National Assembly, because the National Assembly has no power, has no constitutional role to regulate how parties conduct their affairs. That is one. Then secondly, since it is a law now, unless it is declared void by the National Assembly, by the courts of law, in my own understanding, indirect primary election is far, far better than what we are going to bring now, because you have a situation whereby you have people line up and queue up and vote for a particular candidate. And if the returning officer decides to allocate more vote to somebody who scored either 2 or 3, and he said he scored 300, you have no, process of now verifying that and proving that before a court of law. So this I think the previous provision is better, either direct or indirect primary election or consensus. Whichever one the parties wants to do, fine, they will do it. But now having this one saying either direct or consensus, it's somehow provision for the trillion tax for the consensus.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Right. I mean, that is very robust and quite understandable too. Chief Wazirike, if I should just come back to you on that. You talked about it too, and he had said it at the beginning. You said you described it as confusion. And what that, but do you think there's also confusion surrounding the determining pre-election matters with the shortened period of time? Then on this timetable, where we now can have elections, the first set of elections in January, early January for that matter. I think January 16th. So what do you think about, this shortened period of time, the notice that INEC has given?
Well, anybody going to contest election knows what to expect. And the happy INEC has also released a timetable. And many candidates are agitating that the time is too short for them to compile their electronic membership.
Yes.
INEC is a flexible body. It should also listen. If there's any reason to amend, please, they should do so. It is better to amend than to stick to something that will cause confusion. The pre-election issues, time for primaries, which, as far as I know, should start from the ward level to the local government level, to governorship and presidential. So they are going to be too busy with getting ready for that big battle. Whether they will meet up, I do not know. We have 774 local governments in the country, and each of them must organize. So the richer political parties have no problems. The poorer ones just have to lag behind. But when it comes to timing, all the smaller parties are in trouble. They can't cope. The organized ones, I know presently one political party is like an octopus everywhere. They may not have too much problems. But satisfying the electorate or producing the result we want, which is the choice of the people, has become a problem. All we hear every day is complaint, complaint, complaint. Yes, the prof has just come in, but he has been a professor as well as practicing, because he has been in the game all this time. He knows he's not a novice. So, first and foremost, learn to avoid the pitfalls. Okay. Or as Okadibo will say, the banana peels. Avoid the banana peels.
Okay.
So that you go out with a good name. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Mr. Obono-Obla, you want to share your last words as well?
Yes, that is why I described the 2026 Electoral Act as a very innovative and progressive piece of legislation. I am excited on the introduction of direct primary election. It will bring some order into the process of recruitment of leadership, and competent people, knowledgeable people, enlightened people will be able to get tickets in political parties, because what we had previously was just an oligarchy system whereby only those who have money, those who are endorsed by governors, who are leaders of the parties in their various states, or political party barons or oligarchs. I can tell you that because I have experience. In 2022, I wanted a ticket to go to the Senate to represent the Central Senatorial District. And my governor, who just jumped from APC, from PDP to APC, became the leader of the party. So what he simply did was to, impose people he wanted. The primary election, or the indirect primary election.
Well, we could go on and on about this. I sincerely apologize, Mr. Obono-Obla, that our time is up, and we really... Perhaps the challenge here, is, testing the law, so to speak, as some people would say. Well, any other amendment now to the amendment that's just been made by INEC means that we have to delay the timetable and possibly even have the elections on May 29 next year. But I don't think that's going to happen. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Okoy Obono-Obla is a legal practitioner and former special assistant to the President Muhammadu Buhari on prosecution. We've also had with us Mr. Sunusi Musa, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, joined us virtually, as well as Chief Godi Wazirike, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I didn't get any copy from you.
Well,
no cocoa.
It's her. She's the one that should give you coffee. Or cocoa or cocoa. That would have been me. Or maybe some of that time. Thank you so much for your time. Now, we've had a conversation around Electoral Act controversy, which is already causing some conflicts here and there. And by the way, talking about conflicts, That's our next conversation.
Please stay with us.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us on this program this morning. From controversy to conflict.
Yeah, all our conflicts, really, if you ask me. It's still
Now, well, this one is about conflict zones, expansion of conflict zones, more talking about security, or a lack of it, because for over a decade, Nigeria's security challenges have been largely defined by what is called distinct regional theaters. The jihadist insurgency in the northeast, the commercialized banditry of the northwest, and on and on and on like that. But early this year, this geographic containment was collapsed. Conflict zones are no longer isolated. They are expanding into previously stable zones, creating a connected conflict zone that bridges the Sahel and the Nigerian heartland. This expansion has moved beyond rural skirmishes to threaten national stability. The federal response, including the November 2025 declaration of a nationwide security emergency and the launch of Operation Savannah Shield in February this year, reflects an admission that, existing strategies are no longer sufficient. With the 2027 general elections approaching and the presidential election now set for January 16 next year, the widening reach of these armed groups poses a direct threat to the democratic process and the integrity of the nation's borders. Joining us to have this conversation this morning are Dr. Sheyi Adetayo, who is a former ASIS Regional Vice President, and he's Head Security of Security and Intelligence. He's also a security and intelligence expert. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Oyewole Ogini also joins us. He's a senior researcher at the Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Adetayo, let me begin with you on this. 2019, the federal government of the day decided to tweak the security architecture of the country to be citizen-centric over and above state-centric. I read that policy or positioning or whatever, and I felt that, okay, finally, maybe, we'll be having a security architecture that is tweaked towards protecting the people as opposed to protecting the state. But I'm not sure much changed at that time. Perhaps that is why we're having this evolution that we're having.
Well, to me, it's more about semantics, because at the end of the day, the people makes the state. Okay. So if the people are protected, the state is secured. And it's more about how we implement those policies. See, we've seen several committees, people coming together, think tank groups, and coming up with, and at the end of the day, the people who are supposed to implement it, how much of understanding do they have on the document before them? I think the difference between what we used to have and what we're having now is that we have people on the side right now that we can actually beat our chest to say they have good grasp of the situation on ground. If you look at the leadership that we're having now, the head of the DSS, very brilliant, sound intelligence guru. I'm also happy with the appointment of Chijudisu into the Nigerian police. We know this man is a grassroots police officer, the man who always lead at the front. And you see the successes he recorded while he was in charge of RRS in Lagos, the good guys. He created the good guys, and we saw, people-centered police operations where your vehicle broke down and the police officer will not only stand by you at night, they will always also escort you home to ensure that you are home. And, that also gives them confidence that, there's hope when we have the right people, at the saddle of, and we've seen what, reports coming from the Nigerian Armed Forces as well. We've seen people saying good things about General Chris Garuba, and also the head of the Nigerian Army. And I believe that with these eggheads, coming together, being able to interpret, the document before them vis-a-vis the dynamics of what we are having. We shouldn't forget the fact that this problem we are having were largely created by insecurity and destabilizations of other nation states around us, creating a difficult situation for us in Nigeria. But the problem is that we weren't prepared as a nation for things like this. And when it began to come, we are so much consumed with religion and tribal sentiment that when we're supposed to begin to look at this thing outside of religion, we're seeing them as, oh, these are our religious brothers, or these are our ethnic brothers. See, not realizing the fact that even though they share the same ethnic with you across international border lines, their intention towards you, is inimical. And it took us a long time for us to wake up from our slumber and begin to, and these people have already gained ground. Look at Electoral, for example. Electoral was a brainchild of the late former president of Niger Republic, Barry Mainasara, who created it as a Fulani vigilante group far back, and to curb cattle rustling and some other crimes. But as at the time that he died, subsequent Nigerian governments abandoned the group, and they began to form alliance with a different jihadist group, until one Isalakru now brought them to Nigeria in 2018, towards Sokoto end. And then one Aliu Ibrahim, the district head of Bale in Gudu, Gudu local government in Sokoto, now decided to employ them to help to fight, cattle rustlers in his domain. And, his son became part of them. And they were keeping money with that Isa Ibrahim. And when the son died, they went to go and ask for his money, their money, and the district head refused to. And they slaughtered him then. That moment, they lost control, the community lost control, and Electoral began to take over, taking as much as, and as at the beginning, these people were from Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger Republic, Algeria, and Libya. So it took intervention of governments in 2019, Sokoto government in 2019, to use a non-kinetic approach, to address it. I think they were probably talked to settle. Those from, Libya, Mali, Algeria, they left, leaving majority from Niger Republic. And we can see what these people have done over time. So instead of recruiting from outside, they're now recruiting from Nigeria, taking advantage of a lot of issues that we fail to address.
My apologies. Doesn't that also, make us vulnerable as a people? Okay, maybe a good way to ask that question is, perhaps we weren't able to mitigate. Let me take you to Dr. Ogene. Perhaps we weren't able to mitigate, the challenges we were having when it seemed limited. We pleased ourselves or rejoiced at the fact that we were able to disintegrate Boko Haram while ignoring other dangers. And here we are now. It's moved way away from the northeast. It's now in the northwest and getting closer down to the north central. And that is what is a little troubling. What's your take? Where is all this coming from? Did we ignore some things? Did we... what's your reading? You've been studying this for a while.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a very great reflection that you have on what's going on. I think the important point I want us to realize, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. What I want us to realize is you mentioned something on the shift from, towards people center. And this is a very nice policy that actually look at instances where people become the center of attention and human security becomes the center of attention. But if you realize that, my colleague said something about DSS now reshaping and others. The question we ask is, DSS have been always having this information. They do have quite information. They are very fantastic. If you think of somebody who knows information about this country, is DSS, one of the agencies that you cannot play with. But the question is, how are we using this information? How are we translating it, not just only from the kinetic part where we arrange the presence of military or station police somewhere, how is it translating to the local area, for example? And this I will defy a bit when my colleague mentioned that because of the trouble, the neighbor. Yes, neighbor countries' trouble is one thing, but we have our problem. If you talk about banditry, from our home worker just came back from defeat, not up to a week. I can tell you that 95% of the bandits are technically engineered in Nigeria, the banditry. So, but when you talk about the justice insurgents, that's when we can now talk about their links and how they closely linked to other actors, as you mentioned, not just in Mali, not Nigeria. Nigeria is not the larger population, but rather from Mali, and specifically they moved through Gao, and the other side, they came through our forests, those Aoki side, Arewa side, Kebbi, and then down to Sokoto side, and then they moved cross, and now they are even moving not just only that, in North Central. So they moved through Kebbi, Bagudu local government, and then just few kilometers, you enter Niger side, and you go to places like Kayama in Kwara where events happen. So what I want to say on the question that I raising is the fact that if you want to translate this policy, it means you have to look at the structure that we have, the local structure. You cannot replace it with police. You cannot replace it with military. You can only touch this aspect of local governance. And the local governance, the more they are weaker, the probability that we will have more problems. So this question is like when you are asking, the state government want to have autonomy on the security, but do they want local government to have autonomy to be able to address grassroots issues? So because if we don't address this grassroots, we cannot address them. There is no local government that don't share border. I was in Baroten, for example. Baroten is one of the largest local government that share border with Benin Republic, one of the longest. Secondly, if you go to Electoral in Kwara, it's also one of the largest local government. If you look at those places and you see their border they share with Kogi, they are dealing mainly with bandits, kidnapping mainly, including Ekiti local government in Kwara. But when you go to Baroten, there are two layers, places dealing with banditry and places dealing with Mahmudawa-led group, as well as Lakrawa on the other side with the event that happened. So the border that the forested areas, which we are talking about, has to do with, we can, even when you use human intelligence, you use drone, you cannot solve it if you don't have good relationship with them. So which means have to reopen the wound, we have to mend it somewhere, we have to find a way to work together with our neighbor to be able to tackle these challenges. So I'm talking from the root cause, which is the local governance. Right. We have to address that first, we have to tackle that, which means the governors have to be very realistic with themselves and say, look, that funding we are taking, the autonomy we are taking for local government, it will not give us any possible outcome. We have to really allow them to be autonomous, to develop grassroots. People can knock the door of councillor, people will be able to knock the door of chairman, people will be able to knock the door of secretariat, local government secretariat, but before you can get to the House of Rep or you can go to governor, it's a bit far. That is why you could see that it takes 10 hours for this armed group to operate in Wawa, 10 good hours from 5 p.m. to another day. So
right.
It has to do with infrastructure, it has to do with quite a whole lot.
Yes, yeah, that's true. If I, if you can take it up from there. She talked about that it's a local government grassroots thing. Talked about knocking on the door of your the chairman of your local government, your councillors, which also makes it a little bit political. Do you agree with this? Is this a political, issue, or is it a social issue? And why? And I'm thinking, why the concentration? Kwara State really took a hit. Why the concentration on Kwara State? Up till a few days ago, we still heard kidnapping in Kwara State, killing of people in Kwara State.
Okay, so there's a bit of everything in what we are facing today. So you can't actually point to one particular and say, oh, this is the cause or this is the solution. We have to take care of all. But are those that have higher priority than the others? Local governments has to do with development of local government. Largely, we only creates ability for us to have that engagement with the people at the grassroots, and then being able to galvanize intelligence within various communities to support government. Beyond that, there is nothing else they can do in what we have now. We've reached a level where, higher level of interventions are required, while we're still grooming and growing at the local government to ensure that, we're still able to connect with the people and still get the important value we can get from the people to help at the national level to solve those problems. Now, you made mention of issues around why Kwara State now, but you know that this problem has started a long time ago. And if you look at the map, it started coming down gradually. And what made Kwara to be on, to be red on the map is because the northern part of Kwara State, Kayama and the rest, are sharing border with the Kanji National Reserve. And that place has been a hotbed for the activities of Sadiku and some other groups, which over the years have been around that Kanji Dam area, and they have been, it has been a safe haven for them. And with the launch of operations around, in Niger State, that's already making it very difficult for them to be able to operate up north. They saw that there is more space for them, allowance for them down south, and they began to move into communities, bordering Niger State towards the northern part of Kwara State. And if you look at it all the way towards Ekiti State, which you also, as Ekiti local government, which you also mentioned, also share boundary with the forest in Kogi State. And we know that Kogi has been hotbed for ISWAP activities for also a very long time.
And so what about Ondo State as well?
Ondo?
Yes.
Yeah, if you look at that, see, there have been reports, even a leaked report from the DSS, where DSS sent a report to the Ondo State government some time ago that, telling them what they have done to curb the arrests that they've made of all these insurgent groups and terrorist group. Then the report or the letter was sent to the head of the military. I think there's a brigade commander or so, for them to be able to support with mop-up operations as a follow-up to what they have done. Which means that, you see, at times, lots of things are happening that we are not aware of. Yeah. It's only when we see some of those few leakages, that's where we get to know that, oh, so these people are being... Do you know how many times that they've arrested terrorists in Lagos? But if they announce this, people will be jittery. It will affect, besides, it will affect investment into Lagos. So that's why organizations like the DSS will do its job quietly and seamlessly. They will do it and they will mop up all those, so that economic activities will continue to go on, while they will continue to do...
Should we then say, Dr. Adetayo, that this whole noise, because there are those who have claimed that the humongous noise we hear about all of the insecurity in the country is usually to create political narratives or narratives for political advantage.
Of course, we can't take that away from it. We are human beings and people will continue to play politics, and we play politics for different reasons. Even some within even the ruling party might also want to create such a politics for relevance. So it's not even all that is even coming from opposition party. There are those even within the ruling party that might want to do it for relevance. So politicians will always be politicians. And when people try to create certain narrative, some might be for attention, some may be for patronage.
Wouldn't one say, I sincerely apologize, wouldn't one say then that we have a problem of a lack of patriotism in that? Because if the only reason you are demarketing your country is to gain relevance and political advantage, do you have any love for that country?
Well, unfortunately, that's their reality. Yeah. Should Nigerians be concerned about this? Yes. But should you set up ring light every time there is something because you want, social media hype or followership or for it to be seen? The answer is no. You need to consider what I'm about to do. How will it affect more? Okay, for example now, that's attack at Woro. Information was sent out by the community. Somebody leaked it out. It became a public information. The people who wrote them got to know that we wrote you, then you now send it to government. Ordinary issue, if such information should have gone, following the pattern where, that document ought to have become classified immediately and supposed to have been handled. But somebody would just want to, be seen to be, oh, I'm close to source of information, oh, I'm the one that is trending, that's not that is happening now that I don't know. And you see people writing all sorts of things, and they are jeopardizing the life or putting the lives of some people at risk. Recently, the DSS sent a document out, and the document was in the public space. So the question is, who leaked it out? If something is meant to be a classified document so that actions can be taken, because my friend Dr. Guinea made mention that, the DSS are good, they do this, but what is happening to? The fact remains that there are action agencies, depending on the nature of the intelligence. This information will be shared with them. But if the information had been compromised at their own level, even when they act, their actions will be ineffective, or the effectiveness of their operations will be affected, because there are leakages within their own
Perhaps
entity.
That also says that even the system, among the intelligentsia themselves, they also should tinker with their own processes, because such leakages is not even good for national security. But let me come to you, Dr. Ogini. There is that issue, very interesting issue you raised about the local governments being needing to be as active as they be. I mean, I've already been christened as a local government ambassador on this platform, so which is fine. And because I have seen it work before, and if the local governments are as active as they ought to be, the governor may not be as troubled as he is. We remember in the days of Fashola as governor of Lagos State, he went everywhere himself. If the local government administrations had been as active as they should be, I don't think we'll be having that kind of situation on our hands as we are having it now. Now, to this that you are speaking, do you see any political move or any pragmatic political moves, particularly at the National Assembly or the presidency or even the state governor's level, to say, let us empower these local government administrations so that they can be what we expect them to be, as some military officers that we've spoken to on this platform has said, that's the first line of defense. But it would seem like no one is looking at it that seriously, even though the president is vehement on that conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's like the statement President made about state policing. I find it very interesting, but it's more or less like, we want to have control over our state, but we don't want local government to have the autonomy. We are not solving the problem. No matter how state security policing we establish, they can never be effective. They will never tackle the situation without addressing the local government issue. I think you already raised the point. The National Assembly already did well. There are laws that have been assented, but the governors are playing politics with this. They do not allow this local government to be autonomous. They need to allow them to have access to their fund, as is constituted in our constitution. They need to allow them to have free and freer election. They need to allow them to take their chances to be able to have developed. In the past, we used to have maternity. We used to have tractors from local government that help farmers to do one or two things. I can also give you a practical example how local government chairmen are actually addressing. If you compare Barotin with Kayama, you will see two different things. In Barofin, the local government had to do, before they do have different category of people living in the community. For example, in Kosobosu, or you are talking about Boya, these two communities, they were able to devise the means to tackle the security. And that's why if you go to Boya today, if bandits want to go to Boya, they have to think twice. Because what happened, the local government, they have to speak to the people, both Fulani and other ethnic groups, and say, look, because they have challenges of informant. And I say, look, if you don't provide information, we will see you as an outlier. So they find a way first to build trust with the community and the security personnel. So the community were able to express their fear, because if you say this, the informant is going to bring it out. Because armed group pay huge amount of money to the informant. They have their intelligence network that are well paid by even than some DSS, not to appreciate them, they got it through illicit wealth. But what I'm trying to say is that, so they were able to discuss together and say, okay, we first need to build trust between the local people and the security. And that enabled them to have exchange of information and then to think of the outlier, and then they're able to say, oh, you are not providing information. We will not allow you to live in our community. You need to come together and provide information. Of course, it's still an ongoing issue, but they were able to tackle a few things, and they are able to communicate with the security. So this is just an example of how you can take advantage of the local governance and actors to be able to be proactive and address certain things. But I want to go back to the question you are saying. If you look at Kayama, when the vice president traveled to Kwara, he only stopped in Ilorin. He didn't go to Kayama. And then the question is why? Because this incident did not happen in Ilorin, it happened in Kayama. But if you want to travel from Ilorin to Kayama, your back will break because you have to drive almost 8 hours. The road is nothing to run home about. So think of it, from Kayama Secretariat to Wawa, you have to drive about 2 hours in a very rough road, not even accessible. It's closer to go from Niger State, from Wawa, the other side, which is about 26 kilometers to Wawa, than to go from Kayama. This is about accessibility. So, and this accessibility are always used by the armed group. For example, armed group are able to overpower communities that have limited number of people compared to villages or communities that are larger. So infrastructure, ability to communicate, to have phone, to have services, all this play a role on how people can give up to support armed group or to withdraw or to support state. So there are few elements within the community that can be resolved if the local government is effective, and that will help. But if they are not seeing anybody and they know if they declare information, they are going to be attacked the next day, they will not declare any information because they want to save their life. Yes. So these are the issues that we have to talk about.
Right. If I could, let me just thank you for that contribution. So, which brings up us to this point, something that's, I've always, me and my colleagues and I have always discussed. It seems as if these groups take advantage of areas that seem to be far-flung. He just spoke about the Kayama. From Ilorin to that place is about 8 to 10 hours, and our correspondent also said so, that to travel there takes a long time. It's like going from Lagos to up north by road all over again, take that amount of time. So, which means that the groups attack first and then we respond. I think ours is always response. There's an attack, then the troops or the security agents now go there to keep peace, to make it calm, and to... Well, the attack has taken place already. But people have died.
It's because they have the advantage of choice of targets.
Yes.
To attack. You see, we're talking of large communities spread everywhere. And there's no amount of security you try to put in a place. You can't cover everywhere. So if you are here today, they will go to somewhere else where you are not there.
Yes.
And if you decide to move there, they either come back to where they were before or go to somewhere else. So we're dealing with a very big issue. And like I've been saying before, we first of all need to clear the forest. If we're able to clear the forest, disrupt their logistical structure, disrupt their value chain, scatter them, it will be difficult for them to be able to regroup. Then we can start picking them one by one. As long as they continue, to sustain their base and launch operations, then it will be very, very difficult for us, because over time they will have done their reconnaissance, case where they want to attack, and the decision to attack is not, those decisions are not taken overnight. Like a month ahead, they say we're having interest in a particular community. They will have sent people ahead. They will have looked at that area, then they start moving equipment, resources closer to those areas, and then they will now strike. And these are things that, it makes it very difficult. And because, their own value chain is also built around this community, because they live on taxation. The tax community, they get their supplies from community. So they have people already either recruited from the community or planted in those communities that are also helping them.
Right. If I can come in there, earlier you said something that the security agencies are working behind the scene.
Of course.
It's not everything they do that we know. They've been able to contain a lot of incidents or stop a lot of incidences before they occur. If that's the case, and how come these groups can carry out, their reconnaissance? They can send people ahead, like the disciples, go and look ahead and see what targets we can attack. How come they are able to do that, and we don't have, in security intelligence, knowing that, these people, you'll be able to know who is strange in the community and who's not. If the security agents also do like plain clothes, you go in there, because sometimes some of one of the communities in Kwara, they were notified that the groups were the armed. They were sent a letter according to
they weren't
reports.
The only community they said. That's what people don't know. They weren't the only communities that have received such letters.
So if they have,
we are not aware of those ones because some things were done. The only one we are aware of was the one that was attacked, because the effectiveness of the action taken could not secure those people because they're already overwhelmed. Yeah. We need to understand this. You see, what makes the news or what gets to the news are the ones that went wrong. Yeah. So they are the ones that will see. You see, let's go back even into the days of our forefathers. Communities want to fight against another communities. They have a way in which they try to, spy on those communities, check their weakness. And it is part of human. Look at the Bible. Even when the children of Israel even want to enter Jericho, or even when they wanted to go, and take the land of Canaan, they send people ahead. See, it is already, part of the human nature of trying to build structure for your own survival. Yeah. So, it's not something strange. But another thing I said earlier is that these people have been in this forest for a long time. They have built a kingdom. They have built a structure around that makes it very difficult for anyone to be able to, close or counter overnight. And we're talking of large expanse of land that is, bigger than 4 or 5 states. The entire of South is put together, in Niger State that we're talking about here. So it can take someone like, 2 or 3 days travel when they move the team that wants to go and do it ahead of time to go. So part of what is said, which was community, local government, the most potent structure within the local government structure, because the local government are in charge of the chieftaincy. And I've said something here many times that there is no piece of land that does not have people who are administering it in terms of local structure.
Like landowners.
Landowners. There are bales or local that will say, this is our land. And it is the ability of the local government to strengthen itself to a level where they can take advantage, of all these people. When they are within their territory, they know. Are they bold enough, courageous enough to provide those information? If they have done it before and then the team backfire on them, what happened? We investigated, and we need to now create that assurance to say, this is how, it's going to be going forward. And we need to begin to actually start addressing that particular. And Dr. Gini made mention of issues around local government autonomy will take a time before it gets settled. And I think we are gradually moving there.
Because just as he said, and you have also spoken to, we're not talking about data here. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about destinies of people. We're talking about children.
Local government autonomy that we're talking about is just about the finances. Local government have been running the local government. It's just the area of their own finances.
It is in that area of finances that, if they are not, for instance, able to finance their own security architecture, what do?
So this now takes us back to the state police. And see, I'm an apostle of state police. And I've always tried to tell people that...
Sorry, before we get to that, because that may take like a year or two, this whole conversation around financial autonomy for local governments, administrative autonomy for local governments, is so that they can be able to get some things done all by themselves. I know, and you may want to validate, or otherwise, that local government administrations also have their own security meetings, security architecture, if I can use that term. From time to time, the chieftains that you mentioned, community development associations,
I have been part of that. When I was in the service, I've been part of local government security meetings.
Exactly.
So I know.
So what is the problem? If they have those meetings, what do they lose?
So there have been this huge reliance on the federal security structure.
Yeah.
So even at that local government, even when you make all those decisions and the rest, it will be passed to the DPO that is right there in your meeting. The DPO will still have to take it to his commissioner of police at the state level. The commissioner of police will still have to get clearance from the IG before anything can be done. So that is why I've always been championing the state police, that the state policing system can be able to give us something that, you know, we can be able to have command and control at the lowest level where decisions can be taken. And if you look at the successes of Amotekun, whether you like it or not, Amotekun has been effective. Are they there yet? No. But we can see those, because Amotekun, the people in Amotekun are with the people. They were drawn from the community, and they understand the community. And they understand that if I'm in the community, I know something, my commander is just a phone call away from me. I can get my commander to respond to what is happening in my community. And that is where I believe that, you know, we need to now begin to strengthen. And I think one of the reasons why this new acting IGP was said to have been brought on board was to ensure that this state police initiative is, because one of the first things, the things that the president told him while he was being decorated was the implementation of the state police.
Yes, and I think
this man, I know him very well, is a grassroots police officer. So if there is somebody that will be able to, you know, implement something like that, is a right, you know, peg
but then
in a right way.
We're also talking about a legal rigmarole that has to go across, you know, all of the country.
Yeah, so it's now left to the politicians and the stakeholders in each state now to put politics aside, fear aside, and expedite actions in this regard. Right. Remember that the whole thing about true federalism is about each state to be able to grow at its own pace. Yeah. Now, if you know that your state is already bedeviled with these things and you need solution, then you have to immediately remove politics and try to put structure in place ASAP so that you can start beginning to see action. Now, the government, the state government are having more money with them now. More money are coming to the local government. So you cannot give an excuse that you cannot be able to fund. Even if the implementation is not going to be at the state capital, you are going to start implementation at those areas where we are recording high, you know, incidents around these issues. That's why you want to start implementation. Please start. Strengthen the traditional institutions in communities around that area. Strengthen there is no community that does not have its own security architecture. Yeah. They may not have sophisticated weapons, but they have. I'm from Ijebu. In my own community in Ijebu, they have their own alaga, which they are using to protect the community in those rural areas. And this will not help them to be able to now strengthen. Yeah. Those people cannot be integrated in the new structure to bring about the formidable defenses.
Right. Right. Let me come to you, Dr. Ogini. We've talked so much about, you know, the local government structure. When the canvassing began for a local government autonomy, of course, it was heavily, you know, reliant on their finances, and they've been able to do a lot of things for themselves. I'm not sure strengthening security architecture was a major part of the conversation. It is now, because we're having all these security issues. But in your experience, in your research work and your years, you know, at the Bond Institute, you know, talking about dealing with these issues, what are the social issues really that the local governments, the grassroots governments need to deal with to ensure that these security problems go away? At the beginning, we talked about kinetic and non-kinetic. And I think that, you know, some of these groups, when you go with a soft approach, you call them disarm, don't do this, it's not good to kill, it's not good to kidnap. they will, whatever kind of resolution you bring in, they will take it and go away. But they will always come back because it's a soft mediation process. But what are the social issues that local government should start looking at now if we're going to take the non-kinetic approach to dealing with insecurity now that, you know, we're fighting for them to be autonomous? What do they need to deal with? What should they be doing to nip these problems in the bud?
Thank you very much. You know, you tied my hand. I wanted to do a little bit slightly disagree with the question or the response that, yeah, DSS are doing very well, but that does not mean there are many places where there are response where community. I can still tell you like 5 or 7 large communities that have received threats in the last few weeks that there have not been any response. So, and there has not been even state response there. So, we should not too overemphasize that we are that 100% effective. We have to be reflective and a bit critical also that even if we say some are not in the news, even those that are not in the news, we have many of them that are not successful. They are not in the news because the bigger thing has not happened. So I think we have to take this a little bit with a caution and to be reflective because it involved the lives of people. When I go place, I was in Tangaza last 2 weeks. When I was talking to people, people were coming, they were still looking for their families. They were looking for, they were waiting for military to come so that they can search and look for people that were killed. When I was in Kayama, they counted almost 156 people, women and children that were kidnapped. They are still looking. They were still counting. I was talking about 12 or 11, 13th of this month. So we are talking about life of the people. We have to a little bit be cautious so that we can also see that it's not that the response is effective. Go to Bagudu. Bagudu local government in Kebbi State. I was there last 2 weeks. There are many communities that have received threats. If you go to Bagudu and you are moving towards the Benin border, you know you have to cross to Benin before you go to Niger State from that forest. I'm happy that you know the forested area. So this community has been receiving threats through the sermon messages from Mahmudawa that if you don't adhere to us, we are coming for you. There are a lot of them like that. So this is not the point that we are that effective. We have to really be serious. Then going to your question, thank you for that. I want to mention that even the non-state armed group, they are using non-kinetic approach many times. It is their non-kinetic approach that enable them to infiltrate the community. They don't come straight away and attack. They come to say, we want to protect you, release your vigilante, we are not coming here to fight you. They come sometimes to buy things and buy it at the double price. They come sometimes to say they believe in religion you share and we are just here to support you. So they come in different way. And this call for reflection. If non-state armed group use non-kinetic approach sometimes, then how much can we counter this non-kinetic approach? And that's linked to your question that we are talking about. When I'm talking about local government, I'm not just talking about the intelligence community, the security structure, because you cannot disentangle security from development. Local government do have tractors. Some of the areas, the young people don't need to spend so much to farm. They just need assistance for the land to be clear, for few fertilizer to be distributed. They go through a whole lot of things. When you go to border area, you will see that most of the community there, they engage in a whole lot of trans-border trade, whether legal or not legal. So when, for example, you go to some places where people are giving $100 for things that you can buy at $10, young people will take that. So these are the dynamics that we need to look at. If local government function, it means local government will be able to provide certain functions. I mentioned veterinary in those days. We used to have veterinaries that are supported by local government. We used to have tractors. So these are the basic things that will create employment.
Dr. Ogini, there's an issue that you raised earlier that, some people, get paid and all of that. For the life of me, there is something that is still very, very difficult for me. And gentlemen, this is for the two of you as we part. It's difficult for me to comprehend the fact that these things are happening and the powers that be in each state have no say. These issues, you raised it, Dr. Adetayo. It doesn't happen in Lagos. Even if it is happening in Lagos, it's so contained and curtailed that it's like the authorities can get ahead of it. That means that there is, maybe I should call it elite consensus or political will or whatever it is. Is this Lagos system replicable in other states?
Okay, if you look at the way these things, the areas where these things are happening, they are not in the main cities. They are targeting communities that are far away. He made mention of 6 communities.
Badagry is far away. I haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah, because they've not got into this. No, some things are happening there. Ipokia, those axes, and the states, they are trying to contain it, even in Ogun State, where we have all those things happening. Now, he made mention of some communities in the last 1 week, 6 communities. You see, that is the one that he's aware of. But he doesn't know how many the security agencies are having. They need to go through this. I'm just trying to show you one now for a community, and it was proven to be a fake threat that someone deliberately decided to drop in the market, alleging that Nigerian Terrorist Association wants to attack the community. And they are getting lots of this. So security agencies will have to vet those. They have to, investigate. These people are overwhelmed. Lots of things. And that's why government is trying to employ more people so that they can get more hands. You see, to me, it's not about throwing blames everywhere. It's about us looking for solution, appreciating the enormity of the challenges ahead of us, recommend solutions to government. If you know what you know, share it. Pick up your phone. Call the police commissioners there, the director of the DSS in that particular. Share your idea. I have shared, information, intelligent advice to, heads of security agencies which they have used, both here in Lagos State, in FCT, and several places, and it worked. So if many of us are doing this, it will encourage them, it will help them.
It goes back to just one thing that Dr. Ogine said. We're out of time, but it goes back to what Dr. Ogine said the other time, which is that of trust.
Yeah.
People have had difficulty trusting the system for a very, very long time.
And they also made mention of that when I said that when they give information and it backfired, that you still need to go and check why did this information, why did this thing backfire on the committee? Because the committee will become reluctant. Exactly. And I've also mentioned the fact that even within the security agencies, when intelligence will be shared, and we're seeing leakages, you see, I'm not, I understand, I appreciate the enormity. And that's what I'm trying to make us to understand, that we have problems everywhere. But Rome is not built in a day. And gradually we will get there. But we all need to also at the same time understand where they are, how much struggle they are also putting in place to ensure that all these things are addressed. And I hope, and because I look forward to better response from those that are responsible in taking up these challenges and resolving this problem for us as a nation. But we must all have that positive outlook, the hope that we will come out of this.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I must thank you. A pleasure having you once again.
Thank you.
Former ASIS Regional Vice President and Head Security and Intelligence Expert as well. Thank you for your time on the program. We'll also had Dr. Oyewole Ogini, Senior Researcher at the Bonn International Center for Conflict Studies. He joined us online, or virtually rather. Thank you so much for your time as well, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we've been talking about information, giving information out, not giving information, intelligence information about that. There are some information that if you give it out now and you delete it, it is coming back.
And also, that all the security issues is also tied to this thing that we're trying to talk about next. Just wait around and you'll find out in a moment.
I will wait around as well, because...
No, it's not everything you say, or you want to say, or you want to write.
Well, she's
that you should put it right on social media. You have to be mindful. Because the internet never forgets. I'm not talking to you, it's a general.
Okay, well, I'm going to be interviewing the two of you.
It's a general statement, really.
You know, because whether we like it or not, the hard truth about the internet is that the internet doesn't forget.
No, it does not.
The digital age, the internet doesn't forget. So the fact that you made some comments some years ago does not mean that as you made it, you know, there is this thing that they say in southwest Nigeria, words are like eggs. Once they have, they have dropped, they are broken. It doesn't.
You can't pick it up, Abi. How can you pick up?
In social media will help you to keep it somewhere. Social media will help you to mummify it, embalm it until a future time, and I think that is what's. So careers can shake, reputations can bend, and the question quickly becomes: is it hypocrisy, growth, or simply the permanence of social media? Well, so many other questions to ask and so many issues to unpack. But we have Mr. Dayo Ayeni with us this morning. He's a I don't know whether to call him a social media architect or engineer or whatever it is.
Digital marketing expert.
Wow. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's pretty interesting that I'm having to discuss this.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I'm usually conservative about this aspect of social media.
Okay.
I've done this extensively now for 17 years.
Wow.
So we pioneered a lot of things. You know, these days when I go around, I see some of my old team members, former staff, are now head of digital, head of marketing in fast-moving consumer goods company all around, and I say, remember when we started this thing? So I know people don't. So when the noise go around that the things you put online cannot be forgotten.
Yeah.
It seems they don't realize until you get to that point where you are famous. Mm-hmm. You're trying to now make some corrections. You know, I deal with a lot of HNIs, and when I mean HNIs, to the highest level in Nigeria. At the point we worked with the presidency to ensure that a particular government where you don't even see anything negative about a specific person, because you would have said certain things and you think the buzz of the air have forgotten, but it will always come back to you. And that's how life works. So usually I advise, when you're young, you can do anything, especially when stuffs are introduced to you. You can do multiple things, but don't forget that.
Maybe we should begin by you telling us, how bad does it get? Where does it start from? I do know, like you said, that some people, when they are starting, they want to become famous. They are putting everything out there just to gain a bit of attention. And once you now gain the attention, you now want to become a saint, and people are not having it anymore. Yeah. So how does it start? How bad can it get?
Okay, so I've had to deal with people who want to become even ministers in Nigeria, and for the things they've said before, or written, or publications about them, or things they've done, maybe tweets, have now become issues that's almost standing at the door. That's not going to help them get into where they want to get into. People want to become governors. So usually it gets very bad to the point where some people cannot even get a job. Wow. Because of the things they've written. So for example, we also have a recruitment side of the agency where we hire for organizations. We have to do background check about you. How extreme can you go? I've met someone who was going to date a lady, was excited until he saw that the lady did set a ring light and told a story about one old guy who tried to date her and all of that. Says the day we have issues, this lady will put up a ring light, and you want the world to come and judge our private family matters. So everybody becomes scared. They don't engage you. They don't want to put you on a particular opportunity because they feel you can't even manage a level of secrecy. You can't be a security agency person and go around and play around with information that are very sensitive. Those things can lead to both you being killed, your team being discredited, and all of that. And, you know, there was a dispensation where we had government, and there was this famous newspaper guys who would get people to just take pictures from the office of government, take sensitive documents, and they post it. Like we had during COVID, there were a lot of compromises that happened that were very sensitive. So you will find that people don't have decorum. They want to be the first to release information. They want to be the first to showcase. And some people want to showcase their body, not knowing that in the next 1 year, you may need to represent your government, yourself, your society somewhere. Yeah. And they just look at you. Part of what people first make judgment about you is when they check, they see what you've done, they are not willing and they are not interested in putting you as the person that will represent us. Because your moral behavior online speaks a lot about it. Some people will say what I post does not signify, it does not have anything to do with my personal lifestyle. Actually, it's a reflection of your mind.
It brings to mind a certain president of a European country, in the sensitive countries, I don't want to mention names, that was a comedian. And, you know, this comedian that will, you know, pull their underwear and all that. This is the president right now. But, of course, there were concerns then that, oh, this man that was on social media always, you know, doing that, but the person still became president. But, you know, it's those kind of things you're talking about, right? That people would... What if that affected him and he couldn't become the president of that, country?
There are many people such as affected even at this time. Their brands, for example, were running an influencer campaign for a particular brand. And Lagos State put up, a rule about the use of plastic, single use of plastic, and the brand had to, you know, convert straws to paper-based straws. And then somehow this lady showed up and she was supposed to be our brand ambassador. We had paid you and all of that. And then you come and say, oh, your straw is not working and all of that. But before you know what's happening, we had to take care of the campaign. And you had to make a refund. So many a times, what you think are just very simple things that you can just say and go all around and think it won't have consequences. It will also affect your children. Sometimes you don't even know. There's this thing that we take for granted. You know, they say a good name is better than wealth and riches. That name, you know, somebody's son can walk in here now and you hear, I'm so and so son, and you will give him audience because of the kind of person his father was. Because that is the advantage you should always look for. Because I have a rule, I will live more with my children internally than what I will live for them physically. Because it's that thing that would help them escalate or multiply what I live for them. Most times we're looking at wealth creation because of, oh, this one come on the show and say, I make $30,000 in 1 month, and everybody wants to be a content creator. What kind of content are you creating?
Yeah, but some people, I've heard, you know, create this controversy around them purposefully to gain traction and to gain followership, even though they know that there may cause consequences and all that. So, you know, how is that social media etiquette?
So there are content that are advocacy driven, and there are some that are just for crowd generation. Most times people don't understand that streaming line. You know, there's a famous controversial guy online who had been there, who had done pornography before, who had done all of that, and now calls everybody out at will, and because he has the audience, people will listen and they will support and all of that. That's one way. We also have non-profit organizations who are holding government accountable, who will go bring out data, show people, you budgeted this amount, this is what you've done, and all of that. You can still do advocacy without certain kind of lifestyle. And because the young team in youth, especially when you're now dealing with the Gen Z going to Gen Alpha, they want to be seen. They like that kind of presence. Meanwhile, I sit down and I do analysis of most people's data, and I see that, oh, these guys are using it to drive their daily livelihood because YouTube will pay them something, so I'll pay them something. Even in the religious space too, it's always like that. So I consult for a particular brand, you know, a pastor who does leadership. And he says to me that, so we did something in Houston, and when they came for prayer meetings, when people, you know, another pastor came for prayer meetings, there was a long queue, a very long queue. The halls were full, and everywhere was choked. But when it came to leadership development, we only had maybe about 200 people in the hall. And I said, what's going on here? So the kind of things that drives us in this culture, the kind of things we're interested in, are very interesting things that you ask yourself, so how does this bring value to the society? You talk about education, you talk about exposure, you talk about healthcare. You can give out solid information about healthcare without being nasty or being sarcastic about it or being naked about it.
It leads to this question, Mr. Ayeni, about the culture of, should I say, disrespect? I don't know a better word to use, because some people just give it to them as it is hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Just say it the way it comes. I'm just speaking my mind.
Yeah, you know? That's disrespect. They don't understand honor.
Exactly, exactly. So, what culture did we do? Because I can't, for the life of me, thank God my dad is late. Because there are some things.
Thanking God that
I can't. I'm telling you, I can't imagine saying some things, knowing that my dad
will hear you.
Is nearby.
He's nearby, yes.
Or can read that thing. You first of all, whose son are you? So if those things aren't playing out anymore, is it a function of culture? Is it a function of, we're looking at this from a family, a lifestyle, perspective, Mr. Ayeni. So what is it that leads people into that kind of lifestyle of disregard for honor, just as you said?
So the first primary driver is, so I have kids. My son is a teenager, and my daughter is close around that age. And I've noticed that there's a missing gap in parenting. I grew up in a moderately okay home, let's say above the line home. My dad had all the cars and all of that, but there was still discipline. There was still regulation. You know when to eat, you know when to sleep, and all of that. Many a times we've left that generation where there is control, where we feel, oh, we're putting too much on these kids. We're using devices as a substitute for parenting. We're using non-availability as parents. We then have helps. We have all of that. We had helps growing up. But that doesn't mean that on Sunday you won't go and pound yam. There is nothing the help is doing in the kitchen. You pound. I cook. I do everything at home. And I would do all the domestic work. Everybody had the portion of what you must sweep before you go to school in the morning. Those were normal discipline. So it helps you build routine. It helps you build honor. It helps you build decorum. Elders cannot be speaking and then you then say, well, I have an idea. You keep quiet.
I have an idea.
So sometimes we then say, oh, we want them to speak up. Yes, I allow my kids to speak up. My children ask me questions, very interesting questions that sometimes I'm wondering, okay, some I have to behave myself. I'm responsible about it. But there is that gap where you then make the child understand that the culture, we're not in another country. I've lived my life in the United States for a while, so I've seen things. I did some schooling in Harvard. I've done stuff. So I've seen exposure. I've seen conversations. I've been to Lagos Business School too, but in Harvard, you can wear T-shirts to class sometimes. But if you go for executive classes, you have to dress in a particular way because other executives are in that class. If you go to Lagos Business School, you have to dress fully kitted. So people don't understand that there is always that respect, that you are called yourself. The way you've been perceived comes with several things. There's also the place where you're speaking your mind at your own detriment. So they look at you, no problem, but you will not be in this room next time again. So the opportunities that are supposed to be accrued to you will not come there. Somebody that is supposed to speak for you, especially your biggest opportunity in life, will come with somebody speaking for you in a room you would never belong to. So somehow they want to make a decision about maybe who will become the next commissioner in your state. You won't be in that room. The governor and his team and the politics will go on and they say, oh, we nominate you, Joke, to become the commissioner for communication. You won't be in that room.
Please, which state, please?
Okay, so let me ask you this now. The issue we are looking at is old posts, or what will become old posts. On the side, I've wondered, when some ladies people see online these days, when they become grandmas, what are they going to show to their, you know? But anyway, all of that is that. I think we're running out of time. But we're still going on the path. So for old posts that that is come out, when it resurfaces, what are we judging? Are we judging the person as they were then, or as they are now, or has the bridge been broken? The two of them are now one.
So my biggest skill in digital marketing is reputation management and control.
Right.
And I work with the richest people in this country, and then a bit of politicians. Nothing is called old posts.
Oh, wow.
The way you're being viewed. So we had a project. I'll tell you, like, open projects, things that I can give you reference to. Sometime in 2014, there was an election, and somewhere in a particular state in the east, a young man was caught with a lot of voters' cards and all of that. It was on the floor, and the pictures were taken, and everything landed on Naira land. And the same guy wants to become a senator now.
Wow.
So you can imagine how much he's struggling to justify that was not that kind of person. So who would believe that you will be honest? Who would see you?
There are some people that you cannot wipe out. Orubebe is one of them.
Exactly. There is no way he can clear himself of some sort of conversation. So you would see that the things you think you're just doing that are just mere stuff now, your children will come. The older you get, the more conservative your life generally becomes.
But excuse me.
Okay.
You know, when we were talking about the Electoral Act controversy and, one of the...
transmission?
No, just generally the politics and the Electoral Act. And, one of our guests said, it's the people. That people will vote for you to represent you, and you must really act and, do good by them. But what we're forgetting is that it's the political parties that will produce
the people,
those who the people would vote for. Whereas a lot of people don't have that choice, because it's the same politicians that will form delegates, that will do this, that will choose. So I'm thinking...
No more delegates.
No, so, so I'm thinking now, going back to the real-life picture that you have just painted of that person that wants to become a senator and is struggling to make his reputation right. But you'll find out that he will still become that senator. So because it's the same, nobody will be able to do anything about it.
So I will not deny the fact that the person can still become a senator, but you will work harder than the person who didn't have those kind of records.
Right?
If you're once tagged a thief, for you to wash yourself clean in this society, you have to do...
And now work in the treasury.
Exactly. They will still give you something, but everybody will look at you with an extra eye.
But who are those people looking at you with extra eye?
So there is also a popular problem that we all have that we don't know. We want to change Nigeria, but we don't join the political parties.
Yeah, yes.
Because you need to join that party to make things happen. And you said, oh, I have a better integrity than you guys. But you're not in that system, so they will still produce that same guy, which is something we cannot go against. The guy has been funding the party for maybe 2-3 years, and you come now and say you want to become. You can never cross that line.
Yes.
You can just be famous, I once led a team, one of the guy who I think was number 4, number 5 on the ballot box for the presidential election in 2019. I was the national campaign director. So I've seen things. I've sat down with politicians. I think the only person I didn't meet at that time was the president. I met everybody you want to think of. So I've seen things, I've had them, and your records will always speak for you.
Okay.
That's one politician I ever worked with that was not womanizing. One politician that when he says yes, he says yes. But because he didn't understand the antics of how Nigerian politics works, of maybe you're doing envelope-based stuff, it became a problem for us. And it was, you know, it was trying to do it the right way, where we assumed it's done in the Western world. In Nigeria, there are certain things that stomach infrastructure is still stomach infrastructure. The poverty is there, and that's why, you know, the earlier conversation you're having about terrorism and all of that will still happen. I grew up in the North, so I understand what happened.
I was going to say that your name doesn't correlate with how you look out.
No, in Kaduna, during the riots, we were jumping dead bodies. I was seeing pigs eat dead bodies where we were. So I've seen things, and I know what triggers these things.
Okay. Now, let's go to the family. I think you had referenced it earlier. You've said that some parents outsource, interesting choice of words, outsource the
availability
to technology.
Yeah.
Now, those children are going to grow up hugging their devices like their lives depend on it. So what are the safeguards that the young adults, teenagers, 20-something-year-olds who are looking for relevance should be building for themselves? What are the kind of safeguards that parents right now should raise their children with, so that they can actually leave the kind of legacy you're trying to leave for your children, which is more intangible but substantive, you know, inheritance than the money and all of those things?
So fantastic. So I like that kind of question. My son does not have a phone currently. Not because he doesn't know how to use a phone, but it's going to be a distraction to him for the kind of life I want him to have. Now, discipline that you learn before you're 15 in your life would help you grow and stay longer than any other thing. I left home at 16 for the university, went to look for admission and all of that. Those disciplines that my parents taught me were the things that kept me through the process. I remember at 17, thereabout, some guy I was following all around said we should join a court. And I said I can't, because, you know, I just can't, because I knew where I was. I just thought of it. There was a time there was a shooting, you know, in the school I attended in the North, and they killed the students. A couple of people arrested, and it's not like the days of social media now, where your parents can have phones, they can just carry their phone and call you. My dad was saying it at home, my son cannot be inside that car. He's so sure that he knew what he had trained me for. Now, those trainings are difficult. Boring is good for children.
Yeah.
Let there be sometimes that they say they feel bored. For example, you don't use device in my house till it's Friday. So on Friday, you're looking forward to it. It helps you build a discipline. My son plays 20 minutes of PS5. If he had done his assignments and had performed well during the week, because the school in the United States, so there is actually the assessment for the week. If you have a C, it doesn't even bother to come and meet us that day I want to get my PS. It's not thinking about, because it's a discipline. He understands that he has access to technology. Even in school, some of the things we first struggled with was that, you know, because they use a lot of laptops and desktop and all of that, he finishes his stuff very fast, then switch to a gaming site. When the report came, he understood that this is going to earn me more penalties at home. So he no longer does that now. I said, go over your work 2-3 times. His performance jumped from having 79 and now he started having 90-something. He understood that this time. So it's a culture. You would hear kids say things, and you're looking at your future. So I choose that 21 or something, I want to become XYZ in my life. Decide now the kind of content you start consuming, because that is what will come out of you in your nearest future. I won't be seated here if I was a riff rat on the streets. Yes. If I was not having something. I'd done 43 certifications in my field. So I had spent time. The day I lost my dad, I remember that night I couldn't sleep. I was struggling. I did 6 certifications that night, because that was how I could channel that energy. So most times, the way you have an outburst, or maybe you feel the society is pressurizing you, it wasn't easy. I came to Lagos not knowing anybody. I would trek from Acme Road to Nikman. I was living in my uncle's house. I slept under the bridge for the first 1 week in Lagos, because the guy who said he was going to host me was not available. So when I go through all that process, and I was sleeping on a couch for 18 months, my mind was telling me in this same Lagos, I will survive, I will make money, I will build houses, I will buy cars. All of that I've crossed. Why? Because I was very deliberate. Yeah. I had over 200 CVs. I was distributing like flyers in 2009 across VI. That was how I knew the whole road network, because I would go around. That is how you develop. So when I start telling this as a story now, it's the content. So what content do you want to tell your younger self? Or do you want to tell the next generation when you grow up? Was it that, oh, I just woke up, I did TikTok, I was masturbating online live? You saw what TikTok was, had to block Nigerians from. Because many a time you think, oh, matchmaking. When you say matchmaking, if a guy does matchmaking, it's seen as trafficking most times. But if a lady does, it's seen as matchmaking, or maybe they are pimps. So you discover that there are thin lines that you don't want to cross because of the future generation and the future you want to have conversation with. And then also, is that what you want the world to know you for? Because it looks very easy when you're creating the content. It looks like, I'm going to go viral, I'm going to get a lot of followership. Followership does not sustain you. I've been there. I've seen influencers. There was an influencer I wanted to sign up. He was on Big Brother, and he said something about sex and all of that, and how he was going to make his son have certain things. And every brand we took him to had an issue with him because of that statement. That's it. So you don't know. And he has over 1 million engagements online, but people are not willing to touch you.
He was not convertible.
Exactly. So you discover that some people that were famous 5-6 years ago, there were blogs that were very popular. They are nowhere to be found today.
Okay, so quick one. Parents, there are some parents who are extremely busy, let's be fair. Extremely busy. At the same time, they know the dangers and are trying to avoid it, of having house staff with their children. And I mean, I'm not talking about all parents. Some are that conservative, that fearful, so to speak. So that's why they probably give devices to the children as a result. For those parents, because the parenting parameters have changed a lot.
Yeah, obviously.
So what do those parents do? What would you advise them to do?
So understand technology. For example, my son's tab or my daughter's tab, there's a particular time it can be enabled. If you carry it, it's a normal Amazon tab. You cannot use it. Even the laptop too has a regulated time where you can engage. Also, you then have to put a lot of parental controls, especially because they come in different batches. Yeah. So by the time your child becomes 10 or 11, the child is smarter than you. They just don't have enough ways to explore. So my son had an email that had parental control. He opened his own email. So it was just carelessness one day. He set up a meeting, let's meet online. And I saw a different email, sent me a meeting link. That was how I knew he had a different email. So what I said there, that one was hindering him from doing certain things.
Yes, because you were born yesterday, right?
So you see, like I said, so it's not like they will not go out, but at least there is a guide. We're not expecting, I expect my child should be smarter, I should do more vices than I did during growing up, but I also expect that I also provide a framework for him to always come back to and be able to guide him about what he should consume. For example, they were in a class and they showed the gay stuff. My daughter didn't talk about it until maybe they were home for holidays, and then she just mentioned passively that, oh, one day my teacher was showing this. So I said, okay, I catch this. So sometimes you get deliberate. Parenting for the first 10, 15 years of your life is hard work because that's when you're building, you're forming this child. And except I'm also extremely busy. I sit on the team boards. I'm supposed to be in a board meeting today. As I'm speaking to you, I'm supposed to be on a board meeting.
Thank you for coming.
So I can tell you for free that I'm also busy. But you then create frameworks around the technology usage. Same way you create regulations. You brush your teeth every day. You must have something to say. If you can brush your teeth and also do your office work, you must also pay attention to the child you said you are raising. Because give yourself 20 years, 40 years down the line, you'll be old.
Absolutely.
That child will then be a representation of what you have put into the child. It's difficult, and there's no place parenting is easy. Sometimes they make me stay up, I struggle. We do movie nights, you see me snoring there, and they'll just laugh. Yes, but I make sure there are certain competencies. We convert energy. So, for example, my daughter keeps saying, I want to become the president, I want to become the president.
Wow.
She's not even saying she wants to become a doctor, and I want to become president. So there are frameworks of the things I curate for her to watch. And then she wants to become CEO at the same time. Sit down, we watch Shark Tank, we discuss it, we read through it. And then on Sundays, you then come up, there's something we do on Sundays in the evening, you come up to tell us, oh, what would I have done if I was the president of Nigeria, if I was the president of Zimbabwe? Go and do research on Zimbabwe, present it. I'm teaching you presentation skill, I'm teaching you PowerPoint, I'm teaching you a couple of things. Then you go on maybe ChatGPT, you write a small book, you put it on Amazon, and you're earning $1, it's 99 cents that I make sure my children earn, like 99 cents. As many books as you can make. Keep doing it. I said, okay, at one point they said they ran out of so I said, carry the Bible and start writing stories from the Bible. Now you cannot finish it. You can write the story of David like 10 times in different ways. Oh yeah, start writing. And they will generate these notebooks. They will upload it on Amazon, and they're generating 1 cent on Kindle, 2 cents. And that's what I'm going to use to pay your college fees. I'm not waiting to raise my own money to pay. You're the one that is going to work for it. So they're being creative doing it. But it's difficult because having to ensure that they do it, my kids have short attention span. So once it's 1 hour, Daddy, we're tired. Can I go and drink water? I'm coming. You too, you're feeling the unease, but you just have to. Then we'll take a break, we'll come back, you do some reward system, and then you start building. But if you can do that continuously for a while, after a period, this is not what you're going to do till you die.
Yes,
you built a culture.
Like
you
my
built
daughter
another
announced
generation.
that she wanted to be a doctor. Now she's 11. And if you want to be a doctor, you have to change your study pattern from now.
Exactly. They go to libraries on Thursdays to pick books. You read through the weekend.
You know, this is a very, very interesting conversation. Yeah. And as interesting as it is, we're all parents here. Yeah. We can tell that it is difficult for parents to be able to, sustain all of these conversations. The least we can do is play our part.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But the important thing is to understand that every practice that will make sense, you need to build some etiquette around it. And that's what this whole conversation has been about. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Digital media expert. We appreciate your time one more time.
Thank you very much.
Now, there is a technology that we use now to watch films. It's called streaming. And that's where I saw one film involving our Artist of the Week when we return. Meet him.
Bring it on, bring it on. You, bring it on. You, life know the sweet too. If some people know they hate you, so use the number 6 so you calculate. You go see the ratio. The beef self na me go. Whether I ask you, they relate to. So bring your own crayfish, we go mix so, oh nah. Oh, share and them talk say, we no go blow. Oh, share them they see us now, we don't glow. Take a look at me now, take a look at me now. We're running things in this town, can't you see? I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do. Just as long as you're chasing money, do what's right, never give up on it. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? Are you ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? Are you ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall. And rising, rising, rising. Keep it high, rising, rising. Bring it on. This life is not easy. So much hustling and puzzling. Everyone is struggling. So make you know they believe say, since everyone is chasing, you're never gonna make it. Never say no, never give up. Keep your head up, standing tall. show. You go turn it up, turn down for what? Shane and them talk say we no go blow. Share them to see us now, we don't glow. Take a look at me now, take a look at me now. Running things in this town, can't you see?
I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do. Just as long as you're chasing money, do what's right, never give up on it. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head up high and standing tall and rising, rising, rising. Keep it high and rising, rising. I don't care.
Oh, I should have got scared. You want to kill us? I did kill you. Don't let about the star.
Marina Kamusa, the simplicity, Hausa English, multiplicity. Ashipana Koza and Chichiki, where Ansaki Cambodia, Hayashi, Karika. Damage wonder Beijing Poli, Kawe Abandaza, American Kadita. Bashita Golden Sasabi, Baye Ashanganushi, Batman pay no company, Topasi Europe Masabo Company. Pass the cushion funny, a real bad gal, them a go down funny. Go the good to check 'em. Police are Sunani Masu catch 'em. Hey, Cambodian Beijing Maganaba, the Shika made the Hanka Mamana. Hey, Gambo controversial, Angama Sanka the controversial. Cambodia the controversial, Wake all in the controversial. Gambo controversial, Angama Sanka the controversial. No need for controversy, no need for controversy.
Okay now.
Controversial. Everything is just sounding controversial on us. Social media, controversial. Electoral acts, controversial.
So who is
security issue?
He's just singing. He's just singing.
But, all right, so we have Sulaiman Landani, who's our Artist of the Week. Join us. Great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Right, so is also called Boss Sulaiman, popularly called Boss Sulaiman, is a multi-talented Nigerian creative actor, musician, broadcaster, voiceover, a professional translator, and content creator whose work spans film, music, radio, and digital platforms. We've seen him, you know, in one of those controversial music video. He also acted a controversial part in a certain movie that we watched.
Yes, yes.
Very troublesome fellow.
The movie is titled The Herd. He was Yakubu in that film, among a number of other things that he's done. Thanks for joining us this morning, Ladani.
The pleasure is mine, definitely.
I can see that. Since the last time I saw you, you've grown a bit older. What's going on?
Time passes.
Time, right? How have you been, Ladani?
I'm awesome. I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm healthy. There's everything to be thankful for.
Okay. Let's start from the obvious, right? We'll come back to the music because I know that you've always been a hip-hop head. But that movie, The Herd, first of all, how did you find yourself in that situation? I know you have some. I mean, I know you a bit of you, but how did you find yourself as Yakubu?
Well, I've always been into acting, and of course, I featured on Sugar Naija, that's MTV Sugar Naija, and so I guess my role over there spoke volumes because somebody suggested that they give me a call when the casting was happening. And they called and they sent me the script for me to audition. I'm here, I auditioned, I recorded myself, I sent it, and I heard that when Effiong saw my audition tape, he said, "This is the guy." Let's use this guy.
Okay. And what was the experience for you?
Wow. Being on set is no joke. Usually people don't understand, but when you're acting, when you're an actor, when you go on set, it can be very trying, it can be very tedious, it can be very challenging. But for me, of course, I know the opportunity is 1 in a million. So I gave it my all. It didn't matter. I was somewhere in Abilkuta where that very scene happened, on the rocks. And so, yes, I just gave it my all, just say.
Well, maybe one of the things that gave you the advantage is your radio experience, because you guys always have to create all of the acting in the ears of the listener for them to see.
I learned from the best.
Oh, really? Well, don't let's talk about that now, because I know where you're going. Now, so what's been the feedback from that role?
Wow. I guess that word should say a lot, because the moment it went on, because it was in the cinemas, there wasn't much reaction on that because a lot of Nigerians don't really go to the cinemas for certain reasons. But when it hit Netflix and online, the digital platforms picked up, and questions, interviews here and there, when my handle went out there, I started receiving requests. There were days I had to sit down at home and do nothing but just kept on accepting requests and responding to messages. It was big. It was big time. People kept telling, Yakubu, you were this, wow. It's humongous. That's all I can see.
Right, and how, in getting ready for, after you auditioned, really, and you knew what you were auditioning for, I'm talking about The Herd this time, what was going through your mind, knowing that, there are times when some of these movies, it's fictitious, but this is based on a true life situation, what happens in some parts of the country. And earlier we talked about insecurity and how it has spread. It's spreading from the regular northern parts into north central and parts of the southwest. So in your, knowing that these are real situations that you're acting out, how did you get into the role emotionally?
When I went through the script, I read the script, and when I found out the role I was playing, who my character was playing, I realized that if I make an impact, it was going to send more of the message to the people out there, and people are going to understand this is what happens when in such a situation. But of course, my character's role is to deal with the culprits that were actually, kidnapping people and, doing all that mischief. So I decided, of course, I had to sink into the character. I see a lot of movies, and just sinking into the character being Yakubu, it's just a normal thing for me. Just read. I think it's inbuilt. When I say it's inbuilt, I'm not trying to say that I am a terrorist or I've been there. I'm trying to say that acting and just assimilating and embodying the role comes with the talent. And so that's what I just did. Read the script, and I decided this is, of course, an Effie of the director. I remember when after a few shots of that very scene, he said, "Are you okay with this? Because this might be your only scene on the movie. Are you okay with this? This is what I want you to understand, that if this thing goes out and hits Netflix, it might go global." So I said, well, let's take it again. Let's go back. So yes, it's Epion. I hope he's watching. I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity, and of course for his directional skills. I heard that was his debut as a director, but he did a wonderful job. He spoke to me and told me, look, this is what we expect, and I just embodied the role. That's basically what it was.
When one of the things that a number of people would remember about that role that you played, in fact, I remember one of the comments that I saw or read about that role is that it seemed like we were promoting the idea of kidnapping and all of that, but you are saying that it is to the contrary, that you think that the role that you played was to discourage it. Tell us a little about that. Maybe it will give some better perspective to people.
when I say to discourage is because when you find yourself, there's going to be a sequel, and I hope, I pray that there's going to be something that will include this question that you have said. That's why I said I hope everyone is watching, because this question really makes a lot of sense. My opportunity over there was to actually just impact, let them know how terrible these people really are, and being a Fulani person, usually the word is herdsmen, and what you hear is Fulani herdsmen, Fulani herdsmen. There are other people who are actually herders out there, but Fulani. So my impact was to actually just to nail that role very well, so that people will actually understand that this is what happens when they find themselves in situations like that. And once again, I'm hoping that the sequel is going to involve more of such roles, so that I'll be able to really, really pass the message better. And the scriptwriters also, they need to do more work in passing that. And of course, the police officers played a wonderful role, because they did their own part, the investigation and everything. Just really, really took the message home for me. And I hope that people, got the message.
What I find very interesting in that movie, having seen it, and particularly the fact that some of the things that you've also said now, is the fact that people need to appreciate that this whole herdsman thing, or this whole kidnapping ring of a thing, is not just about the criminals themselves. Sometimes that movie depicted that sometimes there is collusion of security operatives in there. Well, those who have not seen it, go look at it. But let's also talk about another wing of your life, which is music. Yeah. I know that my producers are still going to play that song, and I know that you've always had a hip-hop head. How is that going?
Well, I would like to, Mr. Max. I've tried to let it go. I've tried to let it go. I'm like, dude, you're getting older. Look at you, you're getting all gray and stuff like that. You got kids, you're a family man, But it wouldn't let me be. It just won't. I realized that talent is a spiritual thing. It's not physical. It's not a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing. And so as you improve, in fact, the talent improves with you. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll wake up with ideas, lines in my head. I will just say, okay, let me just type this down. Let me just write these 4 lines so that I don't forget them by morning. And before those 4 lines, before I finish writing them, 4 more lines come. And I realize that this thing just keeps getting worse. So I can't let it go. As it is not letting me go, I can't let it go also. So that's just why I'm still into music right now.
Very interesting. So how far do you intend to take that part? Because I know that if you wanted to take it far over the years, you would have. So how far do you want to take it this time?
I have been trying, but the one-man army does not really rock anymore, because you need finance, you need people to come in. It's an organizational thing. The sponsors, the producers, the directors, everything has to come in play for one to happen. When you see one artist really making it big over there, there's a whole team behind them. Yeah. And let me just say that on the northern parts, they don't really see music as a good thing, and there's a lot of discouragement about music, and so not a lot of support over here. But back there in Lagos, wow, and I haven't got that recognition, that support yet. But if it does come, if it doesn't, no problem. I'll keep on pushing until I'm 6 feet deep. As long as if I have the opportunity to bury me with a microphone, because wherever I'm going, I'm an artist over there.
Right, and what inspired you, to take up rap fusion? Now that you were trying so hard to get out of it, but it keeps pulling you back. What was your first inspiration to get into it?
I found myself. I grew up. I realized that I'm a human being right here in Jos. As a kid, at the age of 7, hip hop was already locking the whole place down, and everywhere in Jos has always been a musical atmosphere. And so as a kid, there's a lot of music, and I realized that growing up as an orphan, when my uncle's wife would beat the shit out of me, I would go and find myself a place to hide. And the last piece of music I heard would be the only melody in my head, and I would cry my eyes out to the point where I would use the melody that song that I heard, you crying. And so it became a part of me. And rap music is, I guess, because of the pain I was going through as a child. I heard rap music and I took it as an opportunity to just express yourself with a lot of aggression. And it was just people just voicing out whatever comes to mind. And it has always been for me to just voice out whatever I was going through. And so rap music became a part of me. It shows me, let me just say. I can sing, but rap music does it for me more.
Interesting. So maybe, well, you are someone to ask this question. A lot of Nigerian music out there, all over the world, portray certain languages more, particularly Yoruba. Even if it's an Igbo singer or an Efik singer, there's always one Yoruba or the other in it. But this one that you've done, and I find it exciting, that even there's this popular, this one song that is someone sang for the president, and the guy was using a lot of Yoruba, and it's gone viral already. But now that you're singing with your language, and sincerely I find it very, very exciting, very interesting. What do we need to do as a nation, from your experience, both as a broadcaster and as a musician, to scale up our cultural tourism, so to speak? Because the more we sing in these normal, local languages, or rather Nigerian languages, the more likely it is for those to go viral, and people all over the world will see the values that we carry as a people.
The way I see it, we are Africans. We already have our own mother tongue. And fortunately, I can say fortunately, the lingua franca generally in Nigeria is English. We use English to communicate, to connect with other people who don't understand our language. You're Yoruba, I am Hausa. We cannot communicate. You can't communicate with me via your own language. The same, vice versa, but with English. But with us being Africans, the world will not respect us if we only use English to communicate our artistic abilities. And so bilingual is the thing. I think it's extra creative for you to actually write something in your language and actually be able to rhyme with it, make vision with it, be on beat with it. It takes a lot. But if you are gifted, if you have the talent, if you have the opportunity, the first time I met Olamide, I told him when you remember we were at TBC together and Radio Continental together. When he came for an interview, I was hosting the show, Niger Fiesta. When he got there, I told him, dude, this is a song, that's Eniduro. I told him, this is an amazing piece. Please keep it. Don't try and go English, because a lot of people are going to keep on telling you, why are you going, why are you going your language? Why not go English straightforward, so that the international community will recognize you? I think we already have what it takes. We cannot communicate. We cannot compete with Americans when it comes to rapping in English. It is their own. We got it from them. We cannot compete with them. The best thing we can do is to communicate with our own. And you and I know that doing something, just like you said, in Yoruba, the guy that did something for the president using Yoruba, you know that it sounds much better than somebody doing just English. I don't have any spams or any beef with anybody doing just English, but I think it's extraordinary for you to use your own mother tongue.
Absolutely.
To place out there and really communicate.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you what next, because I know what's next. More acting and more music. We appreciate your time this morning. Bossman, multi-talented Nigerian creative, actor, musician, broadcaster, voiceover professional, translator, content. Only you.
That's what Nigeria has to be.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Sulaiman Ladani, and we wish you all the best. We hope to hear more about you shortly.
Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely.
And thank you for staying tuned the whole hog, the 3 hours. Have a pleasant weekend ahead. I'm Joke Rogers.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Be yourself, no matter what they say.